You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Coming up, we'll talk about the war on I-4. Will Turner of Bulls247 will join me to talk about UCF and South Florida in their annual rivalry matchup. That will be coming up shortly. But first, Cincinnati is in the college football playoff. Well, not exactly, but they are in line to be, if the playoffs were held today scenario were to take place. The Bearcats come in at number 4 behind Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. So right now, they are on the inside looking out as opposed to the outside looking in. We'll see what happens. Still some action to take place. But here's something to note. Ohio State plays Michigan. Is this the year Michigan finally gets over the top and beats Ohio State? That would give them 2 losses. Alabama has Auburn and then the SEC championship game against Georgia. So another loss could be in their future. Also helping out Cincinnati is that Notre Dame, the team that they beat earlier in the season, they are now up to number 6 in the playoff. And now they are knocking on the door a little bit. And the fact that Houston is now in the top 25 as of last week, they're number 24. The Cougs are the Bearcats' opponent in the AAC championship game, brought to you by roofclaim.com. Yeah, they can name the championship game, but they can't name UCF Stadium after that. But anyway, I digress. So the Bearcats getting that big step into the top 4. We'll see what happens as the next couple of weeks take place. This past weekend's action, Houston, they completed their perfect regular season conference. They rolled over Memphis 31-13. As we mentioned, Cincinnati, with their victory over SMU as they romped 48-14, they clinched their spot in their 3rd straight AAC championship game. They also extended the nation's 2nd longest home winning streak to 26 games and keep their hopes alive in the college football playoff. They just have to keep winning and see how things take care of themselves, or if the committee will pull a double whammy on them. Owen Dafford drilled a 54-yard field goal as time expired to give East Carolina a 38-35 win at Navy. The Pirates get to 7-4 in the season. They sit 3rd in conference at 5-2. Tulane gets their 2nd win on the season as they rolled over South Florida 45-17. Tulsa routed Temple 44-10, and UCF cruised to a 49-17 win over UConn. So looking at this week's contest, the Bearcats are in action on Black Friday as they take on East Carolina. That's in Greenville, 3:30 p.m. on ABC. The Pirates actually lead the all-time series 13-11. Cincinnati destroyed East Carolina last year, though, 55-17. On Saturday, Houston at UConn. That's noon on CBS Sports Network. The Cougs lead the all-time series 2-1. And they won their last meeting back in 2019. Navy at Temple, noon on ESPNU. The Owls lead the all-time series 8-7, but the Midshipmen won last year's meeting 31-29. Tulsa at SMU, that's at 4 o'clock on ESPN2. The Mustangs lead the all-time series 15-12. Tulsa won last year's meeting, though, 28-24. Tulane at Memphis, 7:30 on ESPNU. The Tigers lead the all-time series 23-13. There's been one tie. Tulane won last year's meeting, though, by a score of 35-21. Up next, we'll talk about the Black Friday matchup between South Florida and UCF, the war on I-4. That's coming up next when the AAC report continues after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. 386-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, time now to talk about the war on I-4 Black Friday at the Bounce House as South Florida takes on UCF. Joining us now from Bulls247, we welcome Will Turner back to the show. Will, thanks for being here.
I always appreciate you having me on, brother.
Yeah, Will, this is an interesting matchup as we get set for another installment of the war on I-4. And unlike past seasons, this is a little bit different paradigm. We see South Florida making some upward momentum progress this season. UCF is not at the top of the conference as they have been normally, so they're a little closer together. And, of course, it is a rivalry game, so basically all bets are off when that happens in most cases. What are you looking forward to coming up on Friday?
I just want a good football game. That's the biggest thing is, I traveled to New Orleans for USF's penultimate game against Tulane over the weekend, and they had a really, really bad performance. Lost 45-14 against Tulane. It was one of those things where it wasn't indicative of the way that USF has been playing the last 6-7 weeks, really. And so I just want to see them try and bounce back, and I just want to see a good football game because this will be the last time that USF fans and USF media like myself will get a chance to see this team live for 9 months until we line it up again in September. So just biggest thing I'm looking forward to is just a good football game between the rivals. It's always a fun time, and I'm sure the Bounce House will be rocking just as it was rocking back at Raymond James last year. Yeah.
Well, speaking of rocking, the boat rocked a little bit this past weekend as Glenn Spencer is out as the defensive coordinator after the Tulane game. Break that situation down for me.
Yeah, so that defense had allowed in the 20 games that he had been defensive coordinator, in the 20 games that Jeff Scott had been the head coach at USF, they had allowed 30 points or more in 15 of their 20 games. So exactly 2/3, which is or 3/4 actually, which is unexcusable. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I think it was 40 points or more, 7 or 8 games, and they allowed 50 or more in 2 or 3 games. So they had allowed a lot of points. They were in bottom 10 in terms of yards allowed. And I think the Tulane game was just a game that really kind of was a straw that broke the camel's back, because this was a Tulane team that, UCF saw a couple weeks prior, a Tulane team that struggled to put up 300 yards of offense between their games against Cincinnati, UCF, and Tulsa, and they had 396 in the first half against USF. They ultimately the Green Wave ultimately took their foot off the gas in the second half, finished with 504, something along those lines. But still, that's unacceptable. If we're in a results-oriented business where, results like that matter and job performance matters, you're just not meeting expectations. And there were a lot of different factors that went into it. The secondary has been banged up all year, starting right before the NC State game. when Will Jones, the Kansas State transfer, went down with a season-ending injury like I said, just days before the opener. Christian Williams, the Miami transfer, missed 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. T.J. Robinson has been banged up. He's a transfer from Rutgers. They've had injuries back there. They've had a former walk-on playing the majority of their snaps at the free safety spot. Since Matt Hill the Auburn transfer has been out with a hand injury, I believe, or a wrist injury. So they've been banged up back there, which has been tough for them to deal with. But at the same time, then it starts to fall on player development. They brought in 8 freshman defensive backs over the last 2 recruiting cycles, and I want to say there's 5 available now after injury, but still none of those 5 guys that are available to go are contributing in any major way, which is kind of, which falls on development in my mind. So it just was time for them to get some new blood into the defensive playbook, and you won't see really a whole lot of changes for Friday night in terms of like the schemes they run, especially on a short week. But I think the play calling and the parts of the playbook they go to, and the play sequencing in kind of the order that they call things on third down and the red zone will be interesting to look out for.
And who will be running the defense?
Yeah, so it'll be linebackers coach Ernie Sims, who's a former Florida State All-American, one of the top-rated recruits of all time, who was a linebackers coach. He was an analyst last year. They promoted him linebackers coach, and special teams coordinator Daniel DePrado, who has been a part of a special teams turnaround that they were one of the worst units in the country graded-wise on PFF, and now they're one of the best. They're probably top 30 in the country. So it'll be those two that'll be sharing the responsibilities, and I'm to assume that it'll kind of be a whole defensive staff effort between DePrado, Sims, defensive line coach DeQuan Bowers, and cornerbacks coach George Barlow. I'm sure all those guys will have plenty of say in what they do this year or on Friday.
All right, and of course, on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, you could definitely see the Jeff Scott influence and some strides being made there. And, of course, I think really things started to get moving with some stability at the quarterback position with the freshman Timmy McClain, who right here from these parts around Sanford has taken the helm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he took over in game number 3 as the starting quarterback against Florida A&M. He had played parts of the NC State game and then the second half against Florida, and he had played pretty well in those 2 games. Played better against Florida than he did NC State, but got the nod against Florida A&M, and ended up kind of running with the job. He's done well so far. His biggest thing is a true freshman, like a lot of true freshmen around the country that have this job year one, is to just learn the playbook, get into it. It's a learning curve for him, and he's progressed well. But there's a lot of situations as a running quarterback where he's trying to read his progressions, and he's standing too long in the pocket. We saw that at Tulane last week. Standing too long in the pocket when he needs to run it, or he'll run it when he probably should have stood up in the pocket and maybe ran through his progressions a little bit more. So it's a balancing act for him. He's getting there, but he's been solid. I mean, you talk about the Sanford influence. I mean, he's got his high school teammate Jimmy Horn from Sanford Seminole. He's on the outside, or he's in the slot as one of his receivers that has really come on over the last couple of weeks. Had an 80-yard touchdown against Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. So he's starting to come on as a true freshman. But yeah, the offense has shown strides. I think the wide receiver room as a whole is better than it has been in each of the last 2 years. Xavier Weaver's pretty much doubled the leading receiver that USF has had in each of the last 2 years, with just over 600 yards of receiving, if I remember correctly. And he should be ready to go. He's missed the last couple of games with a hamstring injury, but he should be good to go. And USF's offense is dangerous with him, and it can be dangerous without him, as we saw, at times between Houston and Cincinnati.
And, of course, he might give UCF fans a little bit of a scare because he wears number 9, which was Quentin Flowers' numbers. And we know what a great quarterback he was and how tough he was to contain. If Tim McClain ever develops to be, half that good, he'll be pretty darn good.
Well, and the funniest part about it is his middle name is Will, and he goes by Q because of his middle name. So all of his teammates and the media members and fans, a lot of folks call him Q because of his middle name, and that's what he's gone by growing up. So for a lot of folks, seeing the way that he's playing some his Houdini-esque escapes, he's already reminded a lot of people about Quentin Flowers. So the nickname certainly helps.
Yeah. And would UCF be advised not to kick the ball to Brian Batiste? They'd be better off kicking it out of bounds.
Yeah, or to one of the up men or something. It seems like every time somebody not named Brian Batiste touches the football and kick returns, something bad happens. But every time he touches the ball, something good happens. And he's just an explosive athlete. I started covering him in high school when he was at I kind of noticed him at Braden River his junior year, and really set the world on fire at Braden River down at Bradenton his junior year, and then transferred back home to Sarasota for his senior year and had another productive year. So he's done some really good things with the ball in his hand. He's an explosive athlete. Wish he'd get a little bit more. Wish he'd get a few more touches in the run game because he's been one of their best rushers so far this year. But he's definitely, without a doubt, taking advantage of every time he does touch the football, even if that usage has gone down in the last few games.
And as far as you look at the opposition in UCF for South Florida, what are the things that South Florida has to do against a UCF team that admittedly doesn't have all their best weapons, but still can be a formidable foe? Yeah,
without a doubt. I think this game presents a really, really, really interesting opportunity for USF just because of the fact that there's not many guys on this Bulls roster that have beaten UCF. I think the last time that happened was 2016, and Michael Wiggs, who's a super senior offensive lineman, is one of the few guys that was on that roster. So there's just guys that haven't really seen it, but guys that are hungry for it, and a lot of the guys were seniors in high school, either committed to or recruited by USF at the time in that 2016 game. So yeah, it's USF is not going to take UCF lightly, obviously, with the how prolific the Knights have been, especially on the offensive side of the football, and vice versa. I don't think this is going to necessarily be a walk in the park for the Knights either. I think it should end up being a really competitive ball game.
And give me your assessment on Jeff Scott. And I know we spoke earlier in the year, and last year was just such a difficult year to try to get anything started. So basically, it's almost like still starting from scratch coming into this season. Give me your comments on the job he has done this season.
Yeah, so Jeff firing Glenn Spencer was a big step, in my opinion, because we were kind of sitting there wondering if he was going to actually do it. We were wondering if it was going to happen. We were, debating, if he was going to cut ties. He obviously needed to cut ties, and that's why they did. But we were questioning, if he was going to do it, and because Jeff is a very loyal person, which is no fault of him. But we were wondering if he was going to be too loyal and give him some grace, with the defense being what it was this year with the amount of injuries. Him letting Glenn Spencer go was a big step for him. I mean, remember, this is still his first time as a head coach. This is still his first run as a head coach. For him, this is one of these things where he's kind of still learning a little bit on the fly on how to manage things, and Dabo Swinney didn't really let go of a whole lot of assistants at Clemson. His assistants were, with Brent Venables and Tony Elliott, and when Jeff was there, like those guys were tight knit. Those guys stayed there. They didn't really leave all that often, and they didn't really have much turnover. So we were curious about that. But now that he's done that, I think that's a big step in the right direction for the program that he's trying to build. Just on the fact that they're saying, that the performance they've had on the defensive side of the football is not acceptable because we hold everybody to a higher standard, and they're doing something to achieve that higher standard. He's sending a message to his team, sending a message to the players they have committed, the fan base. They're sending a message saying that this play that has been over the last 20 games is not acceptable, and it's going to be fixed, which is big for the program. It's a big step for Jeff Scott, and I think it's an important one for the success of this program altogether. Just to see that, but aside from that, it's a lot of the culture things you're starting to see. You're not seeing a whole lot of quit in this so far. As far as I know, anyway.
They're playing hard. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still playing hard. Take the Tulane game out as an outlier for what it was. They just had a bad day, as Jeff Scott said, and but they fought hard against Cincinnati. They fought hard against Houston. They had a halftime lead at East Carolina. They had a halftime lead over Tulsa. Like, they've been in a lot of these games, and they could very well be a 4 to 5 win ball club at this point, playing for bowl eligibility if a couple of breaks go their way. So it's progress from last year. Whether the win column doesn't really say a whole lot, but I think there's more progress behind the scenes than people think, which has been good to see. But at the end of the day, like I said, him letting go of Glenn Spencer is going to be it was a very, very positive thing to see the maturity and see Jeff grow as a head coach, so to speak.
Yeah, and of course, what you mentioned by the record, it can be deceptive in some ways when you look at 2-9 South Florida as a team that's making a move upward. Where you look at 3-8 Temple, which is circling the drain. It's right. No, absolutely, but you look at who Temple played, right? And they played Akron, they played Wagner, and they beat Memphis without Seth Hannigan. That's extremely deceiving. You look at USF played. I mean, that NC State opened the season, which has been in and out of the AP Top 25. Florida at the time, obviously we know that all went downhill, but at the time Florida was seen as the top 15 program and gave Alabama a scare the week after. BYU's been in and out of the rankings, or I think they've been ranked the whole season actually. So, and BYU's a competitive program. SMU's been in and out of the rankings. East Carolina very well could have been a 6-win ball club heading into that game if a couple of plays go the right way, and they're bowl eligible for the first time in 7-8 years. Houston's obviously a top 25 team that surprised a lot of folks. Natty's obviously playing for college football playoff appearance. You look at the schedule they played, and I know a lot of the latter half of those conference and who you have to play, but I mean, even the non-conference schedule was really, really, really darn good. Between NC State and even Florida A&M is like an FCS playoff team. Like they're one of the best teams in the FCS, and their only loss, aside from the loss to USF, came to Jackson State, which is Coach Prime and whatever they're doing over there. But even their FBS competition wasn't half bad. No doubt about that. And talking about the program long range, you got the new athletic facilities coming, and now talk of actually doing an on-campus stadium. Can you give me updates on those?
Yeah, so the indoor practice facility at some point should have been I was told November was when they were actually going to get the groundbreaking. We had the groundbreaking ceremony in September, and that's where Board of Trustees Chair Will Weatherford announced publicly that they would be building an IPF, an on-campus stadium, which is something that USF fans have heard before, something that the feasibility studies have been done and location studies, but they renewed the idea. And from what I understand, there's permits that have been approved. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. However, I will say this: I have been told publicly that by a USF official that on record that announcements should come within the near future at some point. So it's a big project. It's probably at least 5 to 6 years away in the grand scheme of things. I'd say anywhere from 2024 to 2026 or 27. So it'd be down the line, but sounds like it's going to happen. I mean, which is monumental to the program. I know a lot of like the squabbling. Well, squabbling is not the right term, but like a lot of the debating between the board of trustees and folks was where they wanted to put the on-campus stadium in relation to the IPF. They kind of want to make it its own little football village of sorts, to where the players don't have to walk that far from the IPF to the OCS, and they were going to build a football center with it that could be attached to the stadium. There's a few different things that they were kind of debating on and where they wanted to put it, but it's been a few months of any public news, because I think that was the first week and a half of September that groundbreaking was held. So it was quite a while ago that all that that it's been that anybody's heard anything public. But like I said, there's some behind the scenes stuff that they're farther along than I think some people realize. So we'll see, but the IPF is being built, as far as I know, still. We'll see when that actually goes up, but the whole thing is going to be really interesting, and we'll ultimately put USF in some conversations down the line for this next round of conference realignment.
Yeah, speaking of that, of course, since we last spoke, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston are moving on to the Big 12. Many years ago when the Big 12 first looked at expansion, it was very highly thought that UCF and USF would go together, and they would lay a big claim on the Florida market, and USF left out on this round of expansion. But what do you think the possibilities are, next round, as far as that goes? I think an on-campus stadium probably is a big piece of that, because if you look at all the schools that they added, they all have that in common.
Correct, yeah, and that's a big piece of it. The facilities aspect is a huge piece of it, between an IPF, between an on-campus stadium. All that is really, really important to the process. But something that is kind of an underrated, that really opens up USF's opportunities beyond maybe the Big 12 is academics, and getting AAU status in particular is something that I think they just applied for within the last month or two. And AAU status is really, really big, just in general, to have that. USF is one of the fastest rising, much as UCF fans don't want to hear it. It's one of the, fastest rising universities in the country, which is terrific. But, that alone won't get you into a power conference. That alone won't get you into power conference. But, and frankly, I mean, USF ultimately didn't deserve to go to a Big 12 with the way that they've played on the field, because it's like how Rice was going to the American. We all kind of looked at each other and scratched our head like, why is Rice coming over? Same concept. If USF had gone to the Big 12 this round, they just haven't played well in recent memory. Like, even Houston has a Peach Bowl, a New Year's Six Bowl in recent memory, and a Final Four basketball team, to go along with it. USF doesn't have that. They don't have the basketball team. They don't have the football team to go along with it. And, if they're on the upswing, who knows? But I think academics is going to play a large role into it. I know AAU status can really launch some some things beyond the Big 12. I think the ACC could make sense for USF, even with 2 Florida teams. I think Big 12 is still, a landing spot that they would like, but looking beyond the Big 12, just in case down the line, the ACC could be a valuable landing spot. I've heard the Big 10 has wanted to get into the Southeast for years. They tried with Georgia Tech back in the day during the last round. Tampa's a large media market. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that USF to the Big 10 confirmed. I'm not saying that in the slightest, but academics enter those AAU schools. Academics opens the door. If your football program can get on the right track, you get an on-campus stadium, things like that. But Tampa's market size really helps along with all that. So there's a lot of good factors for USF. They just need to get the football program on the right track. I mean, you've got a women's basketball team that's top 25. You've got a softball team that was at the Women's College World Series 10, 15 years ago with, the U.S. national team as its head coach. You've got men and women's soccer programs that have been to the NCAA tournament recently. You've had a women's soccer team that was a Sweet 16 program within the last couple of years. You've got golf teams and that are on the upswing, tennis teams that have been good. There's a lot of things to like with USF's athletic department at the end of the day, but they just football talks, and we all know that. So they just got to get the football program right and get facilities built. And who knows? It might be Big 12. It might be somebody else. But, we'll have to see. But they got to get their house in order before they start looking to move on from the American.
Well, I tell you what, you did mention the women's basketball team. Boy, that was a tremendous effort against a former conference foe, UConn. Gave them quite a battle, and that would have been sweet to finally knock them off after they ran the conference for so many years. So you definitely got a team that certainly will be NCAA bound again this year, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they knocked off number 9 Oregon, and they boat raced Syracuse, which was a tournament team from last year as well. So they scheduled really tough this year. Jose Fernandez did to try and evade being an 8 seed like they were last year. They were an 8 seed, had to play NC State in the second round. And they scheduled tough. They've got defending national champion Stanford on Friday in the Bahamas. So they've scheduled tough, and they should absolutely be NCAA bound depending upon how the conference schedule goes. But UCF always matches up really, really well with them, so that'll be some really fun, interesting battles down the line, especially come tournament time, because last year's game was very entertaining, especially at the end when UCF tried to make that comeback. So it should be a good year for the American and women's basketball for sure, with Houston being on the upswing. Tulane's got a great coach, and UCF is continuing to do very, very well there. So, it'll be interesting to see. It should be a fun winter for sure. Fun transition into March as we get truly into basketball season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Will Turner, please give me the shameless plugs for your coverage of the South Florida Bulls.
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal Twitter is @WTurner247. Our site Twitter, which is a little bit more streamlined towards the latest stories, is going to be @Bulls247. All the latest news coming up to Friday will be on Bulls247.com. And that's what we got. We got defensive court. It's a lot. It's going to be a lot of coaching stuff. I'll tell you that, with the defensive coordinator getting to be replaced. So that's the news cycle right now. But we just wrapping up the third year over at the site, and third football season. It was easily one of the best ones over on the site. So we had a lot of good momentum over there. But Bulls247.com's where you can get all the latest surrounding the USF Bulls in football, women's basketball, and men's basketball and beyond.
All right, sounds good, Will. As always, you do a great job, and we appreciate you being on with us.
Thanks, Jeff.
South Florida and UCF is a 3:30 kick on ESPN. The all-time series tied at 6 games apiece, so the winner will get the upper hand in this series. If UCF were to win, it would be the first time ever they have led the all-time series. And the Knights won a shootout last year in Tampa, 58-46. The offensive player of the week was Desmond Ridder of the Bearcats. He had figured in 5 touchdowns in their AAC Conference Championship game-clinching victory over SMU. He completed 17 of 23 for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also had a 40-yard touchdown run. And he even got a 17-yard touchdown reception before coming out of the game late in the third quarter. Ridder tied former South Florida quarterback Quentin Flowers for the AAC's career record for touchdown responsibility with 112. I like that term, touchdown responsibility. The defensive player of the week, Marcus Jones of Houston, 6 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 3 pass breakups, becoming only the second player in AAC history with at least 2 picks and 3 pass breakups in the same game, joining Cincinnati's Kobe Bryant. And he is tied for the conference lead in interceptions with 5 on the 2021 campaign. So Marcus Jones of Houston, the defensive player of the week. The special teams player of the week, as we mentioned, Owen Daffer's 54-yard field goal in East Carolina's win at Navy earns him that particular honor. Coming up next, we'll talk about the NCAA soccer championships, both the men's and the women's, and other news and notes coming up right after this. This is the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Both Memphis and SMU fell in the second round of the NCAA Division I Women's Soccer Championship. The Tigers fell to Duke by a 1-0 score. SMU was beaten by number 1 seed Florida State by a score of 5-1. In the men's NCAA tournament, Mitchell Cation scored the game-winning goal to give the number 2 ranked and number 6 seeded Tulsa Men's soccer team a 1-0 win over Creighton on Sunday at the Hurricane Soccer and Track Stadium. The Golden Hurricane go to 16-1-1 on the season. They will now take on number 11 seed West Virginia in the third round. That is Saturday at 7 o'clock. And also, they will host that game at Hurricane Stadium. It's 4-time They will play in the third round, including quarterfinal appearances in 2004 and 2009, and a third-round finish in 2012. For the fourth straight season, UCF has clinched the automatic NCAA Division I volleyball championship bid to represent the AAC. The Knights officially secured a second straight regular season title, and they did so due to a Houston defeat at SMU. UCF, they went a perfect 18-0 in the 2018 season, won the American Volleyball Tournament in each of the past two campaigns, clinched the top record in the conference standings following their victory over Temple, and the sweep was UCF's 13th consecutive victory to go to 17-1 in American matches. In lieu of a conference championship being held in 2021, UCF mathematically secured the league championship by climbing 3 matches clear of Houston in the standings with just 2 contests left to play in the regular season. The Offensive Player of the Week, once again, McKenna Melville of UCF, as she continues her dominant senior season, paced the conference with 6 points per set, ranked 4th with a .491 hitting percentage, and was 6th with 1.33 blocks per set in the Knights' 2 sweeps last week. The Defensive Player of the Week, Bria Merchant of SMU, she was a standout in their 2 in a week in the American, 6.57 digs per set and logged 1.29 assists per frame. Merchant fashioned 20 digs and 4 assists at a home sweep of Tulane before posting 26 digs and 5 helpers in a 4-set win over Houston on the 21st. Turning to men's hoops, the Player of the Week, Kendrick Davis of SMU, averaged 24.3 points and 5.7 assists in 3 games last week for the Mustangs. He nearly had a triple-double against Northwestern State with 19 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds. He followed that up with a 25-point performance against Southeastern Louisiana and 29 against Missouri. The Freshman of the Week is Jalen Duran. Duran led the Tigers to 2 wins, averaging 17.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 5.5 blocks on the week. Women's basketball, the Player of the Week, Moon Urson of Tulane, as she helped in victories over TCU and South Alabama and have the Green Wave in share of the conference lead at 4-0. Averaged 19 points per game and chipped in a 6th best field goal percentage at 50%, along with 7.5 rebounds per contest. The Freshman of the Week, Tamira Poindexter of Tulsa, as she repeats that honor, helping the Golden Hurricane to go to 4-0 on the season, averaging 9.7 points, 5 rebounds per game in their 3 victories, while adding 2.3 assists, 1.3 steals, and 1.7 blocks per contest, filling up the stat sheet, if you will. Cross country, the Tulsa Men's program added another top 10 national team finish in its recent run of success, and 3 unattached student athletes also represented the conference at the 2021